Hello, everybody. Let's see who we have here. I think I'm starting a little early. We'll find out. All right. Ooh, it's a little dark in here. Okay. Funny how I can't ever really see. Oh, okay. We got 13 so far. Okay. Can you all use the chat room? If you can use the chat room, feel free to type in and say hi. Oh, there's Teresa, Lucy. Oh, whoop. Hitting everything. Laurelyn, okay. Nice. Justin, Mark. Nice. Welcome, everybody. Holly, Peggy. Peggy, I have to ask you, are you familiar with Hamilton? 14 attendees, nice. Not too shabby, not too shabby. No? Oh, Peggy, you need to look up Hamilton, the musical. You want to look up the song, the Schuyler Sisters, and Peggy's mentioned. So it's kind of a running joke because Peggy is kind of the forgotten sister of the Schuyler Sisters, and it's always a, and Peggy. So I'm a musical theater nerd, so. All right, we have Les, Susan. Yeah, I mean, you'll get the joke because if that's what I thought, the first thing I saw with your name was, and Peggy. I am going to see if I can get some more light in here real quick. I'll be right back. I don't think that's gonna help. All right. You don't realize how dark your place is until you do a webinar. So that's bright because I have light there. This is well lit, I promise. How is everyone doing tonight? Hopefully everyone's having a nice evening. Good, Mark's doing great. Excited to learn new things. I hope it's new. Actually, if it's not new, that'd be really cool, actually, for me, because, you know, new stuff. Okay. Good, good. Yeah. Looking forward to it. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Let me start my screen sharing. You guys will have to bear with me. I am mostly used to sharing or doing Zoom with my meetings. So this is a brand new experience for me. Okay. So y'all will have to forgive me. I won't really be able to look at questions for now until maybe there'll be a time for questions. It'll just be a little tricky to look while I'm going. Guess that was the button to hit. All right, so welcome to first round of paranormal classes. And so let's see. And if this view is bothering you guys, you should be able to you should be able to view another way. So yeah, then just as a disclaimer, because I have to do it with all of my webinars, the ideas and topics presented here are property of APS. Any personal opinions, thoughts, and theories are under copyright and protected by intellectual property laws, meaning I've written a book on this, so it's dated. But I mean, this is all like research that you guys can find, so it's not like this is, you know, exclusive to only me. Yeah, it's just, you know, we work hard on putting these webinars together, and we'd like to keep it all, you know, belonging to us if possible. All right, so in case you don't know me and you're wondering why is this girl trying to teach me anything about the paranormal? So my name is Alex Matsuo. I'm the founder and director of the Association of Paranormal Study. I've been investigating since I was 16. I've written 3 paranormal books, The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater, The Haunted Actor, and More Than Ghosts, which is it is a guide on doing residential cases. So it's more than just, I mean, not saying just a ghost hunting book, but tells you how to start a team. If you want to go into people's homes, what do you have to do legally to make sure you don't get sued? You know, that kind of thing. So anyway, so before we go there, let me go back. Hopefully I'll be featured in Travel Channel's Most Terrifying Places in America. And I'll share the air dates for that at the end of this webinar. You never know what's going to happen with the final product. You know, you spend 8 hours filming something and then you find out you're on the cutting room floor. You never know. So that's why I have the hopefully there. And someone once asked me what my specialty was, and I guess it's, I like to really look at the relationship between hauntings and what's happening in society of that time and why we believe the way that we believe when it comes to the paranormal. Real quick, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Or actually, no, I'm going to look at the chat. Can I look at the chat? No. Maybe? I'm still learning this system, guys. You have to bear with me. Oh, I can see the chat. Nice. Okay. Let's see, who of my friends can use the chat? I guess that's the next question. I know for me, if I hover my mouse over the top, if I hover the mouse over the top, then, you know, you can totally see, you could totally see like your options, but anyway, so that's me in a nutshell. I tend to not, you know, oops, I don't know how I did that. Clear all drawings. All right. Oh, this is fun. This is fun stuff. And as you can see, I don't take myself very serious because, you know, I'm drawing on my face right now. So anyway, if you can't use the chat room, it's okay. That's totally all right. All right, let's keep going, guys. Okay, hang on, my friends. Just figuring out the navigation here. Whoop. Okay, here we go. Don't have any questions yet. There is also a Q&A option, guys. If you click on Q&A, you can ask a question. And yeah, good. Here we go. Let me close out the drawing. Sorry, guys. Okay. So first thing I want to ask you all, and feel free to participate in the chat for this. There's the drawing I did. That's funny. Okay. What is a ghost? What, to you, what is a ghost? So here we kind of see the societal trends with what ghosts are according to what we know of society. Now the general consensus, it's a person who's dead. Let's see. Hang on, guys. You'll see. I just put a note in the chat room. Let me know if y'all can see it. Okay, so the general consensus is a ghost is an entity that was once a living person. Now, there are theories like there's a residual haunting and there's an intelligent haunting. I'll go into more of this in my Ghost Hunting 101 class. Now, some people might not agree that a ghost was once a living person. They might think that it's a demon or it's inhuman. I know according to a lot of Christian beliefs in the paranormal, and I know personally because I was raised Christian, that ghosts aren't people at all. They're demons pretending to be your lost loved ones, and they're, you know, in disguise to mislead you and whatnot. Now, the big question here is where did ghost lore come from? Like, why do we believe in ghosts in the first place? Where did this all come from? Let's find out. Well, I'm gonna give as much of a hint as I can. Well, answer that question. So in order to understand ghost lore, we need to look into early religions. Now, Hinduism is one of the earliest and oldest religions in the world. Along with Hinduism, we also have animism. And what animism is, it's everything has a soul, even inanimate objects. There's, you think about Pocahontas singing Colors of the Wind, everything has a life, has a spirit, has a way. And that there is a certain energy and vibration that is tied to everything. Now, this is dating back thousands of years, guys. Like, we're talking, I want to say 10th century BCE. Like, this is old. This predates Christianity. And this was very influential for indigenous people. This laid down the foundation for paranormal beliefs as we know today. If you look at it, we have haunted objects, land being haunted. Many people are familiar with the stone tape theory, meaning that the surrounding area and land can absorb energy. So animism got there first. And actually, if you look into early religions, it's honestly fascinating. You would be surprised at how old religious beliefs are. Like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. So, and you could say that this laid down the foundation. For what we do today when it comes to the paranormal. So, all right. Good. Okay, so this is probably the nerdiest you're gonna see me get. So I love reading about early ghost lore. So we have, if you look at, there's actually, believe it or not, there is a gold mine of ghost stories from ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And what is really interesting is that they all have something unique and different to their particular culture. And it's very, very fascinating because when we think of ancient Rome and ancient Greece, we're thinking, philosophy, poetry, theater. We don't think of ghosts, really. We're not, during Cicero's time, there was a belief that the dead lived below the ground, and they consciously lived there. We're not talking like a burial ground, but like kind of like an underworld type thing. And this was a place made in every town, and it was a trench that had an entrance with like a stone that would cover it. Corn was thrown into the trench every year, and it was filled with dirt, and an altar was placed up on top of it. And then on 3 solemn days of the year, the vault was opened. So August 25th, October 5th, and November 8th. And on those days, the dead were free to roam the earth. And because death was not seen as like the end of one's existence, the dead were still very much connected to the living and their hometown. So in terms of, keep this in mind when it comes to hauntings, and ghost stories that we have. So, and this isn't just, unique to Cicero's, time and location. The Roman festival for the dead, Dies Parentales, I probably butchered that. That took place between February 13th and the 21st. There was also a Greek festival on the 5th of, I can't say this, but Bordeaux Bon Romian, and that, whatever that was, I'm not going to go into the Greek and, different calendars and whatnot, but that happened until the end of September. Japan has a festival type event for the dead that took place between August 13th and 15th. Mexico, we have Dia de los Muertos, which happens between Halloween and November 2nd. And during that time, the dead are, they have the ofrenda, and, they come, and the dead come and, not roam the earth, but they visit you, your family. And, you have like your ofrenda with the, an altar with their picture, their favorite foods, like different things that they really liked. And then China, and I recently learned about this because I teach kids in China. There's a Hungry Ghost Festival that takes place August 15th. And they also have something called Tomb Sweeping Day. I can't remember off the top of my head when Tomb Sweeping Day happens, but people go to their ancestors' graves and they clean them up. They, you know, not the bodies. There's other cultures that do that, but they just, you know, leave some leave some new flowers, cut the grass, wash things. So there's a lot of time and care, TLC, taken, you know, for your ancestors. And then of course there's other cultures. There's one that keeps going viral because every time it goes viral, people are thinking that zombies are roaming the earth. But I believe it's not in Vietnam, it's not the Philippines, maybe Thailand? It might be Thailand. If someone knows, please feel free to chime in on the, feel free to chime in the chat, but, or make a note to mention later. Oh, someone used the chat. Hi, Sam. Anyway, so this class. All right. So yes, this is class. Anyway, so every year they do very much the same thing, but they take it an extra step. They pretty much remove the bodies of their ancestors and they, you know, their family members, they clean, they put fresh clothes on them, and they literally like walk them up and down the mountain. So that one's a little bit more elaborate, but photos from that always go viral because, you know, people are thinking, oh my gosh, it's a zombie, you know, zombies are real. It's very disrespectful, but you know, we're in an age where fact checking is not really a thing right now. So it happens. But anyway, so every culture has something that respects and acknowledges the dead in some way. That took a lot more time than I expected. That's okay. Okay, we're good. So ghosts always have, whether it's in fiction or in a nonfiction reality sense, they always have a similar appearance. White, wispy, and misty. Now, I know some people, when they see ghosts, they see them as, you know, as plain as you see me and you. But the white, wispy, and mistiness is always a thing. They're associated with a person within a person, so it is not a real picture. It is something to prove a point. But it's to very much, it makes me wonder, had there not been somebody from thousands of years ago to say, hey, this is what a ghost looks like, it makes me wonder what we would have ended up with. But yeah, so, and they compared it to, you know, like when it's cold and when you breathe, you can see your breath. That's kind of where that idea for a ghost came from. And like I said, I'm talking about ancient times. I'm not talking like, you know, 50 years ago. So white is often associated with ghosts because it indicates some sort of purity or change. Now, it's also been interesting to see in early ghost lore, there is a lack of identity when you become a ghost. A great example of that would be looking at Elizabethan Jacobean content, or even Tudor era material, like, you know, Shakespeare, Hamlet. When you read the text, and actually I have a Shakespeare book propping up my laptop right now, otherwise I would show you. It's not Hamlet's father or Hamlet, it is the ghost of Hamlet's father. So, and whenever the ghost of Hamlet's father is mentioned in the text, it's ghost of Hamlet's father. When he's addressed, it's like specter, spirit, ghost. He never says, hey, Dad. It's, hi, spirit form of my father. You know, it's almost like they're a completely different person from, you know, from the living person. So even back then, this mindset was in place, which is rather fascinating. Okay. And then I'm going to go into more. Actually, did I skip one? Nope. Okay, interesting. I am missing a slide. Hopefully I find it soon. So Now, when we think of, and I will say, the Greeks and the Romans, they love a ghost story. But then something changed. Something very much changed. So Christianity, not saying, you know, Christianity's bad, it brought a new perspective on paranormal belief. Mainly, you know, we had the demons, you know, Witch of Endor. You know, we had a different perspective on psychics, prophets, mediums, you know, that very much inspired witch trials. I mean, if you had a woman who was into healing with herbs and oils and stones, she was a witch. And Salem weren't the only witch trials that happened. There were witch trials that happened all over the world, especially in Britain. King James was very much into the paranormal, but not as an enthusiast, but how can we take down how can we take these witches and demons down? Like, so very much, I mean, he even wrote an entire book on demonology, or as it's worded, demonology. It's a little disconcerting to read. I won't lie. And I did get a copy of Demonology, and whoo, lordy. So using the chat, what popular ghost stories do you know? I mean, I have a few here right now. So Woman in White, there are so many cultures that have a woman in white. La Llorona, that's a big one. That's the one that I knew because I grew up in San Diego, which was, you know, 20 minutes from Mexico. There's always a crybaby lane. You know, there's some sort of orphanage that burns down, and afterwards, you know, even after like the debris and everything's taken, you know, is cleaned up, you can still hear the crying of children. Crybaby Lane, Crybaby Bridge, or if you turn your car off or you put it in neutral, you know, something will push your car forward, and when you check your car, there's fingerprints. There was always that spooky house on the corner of the neighborhood that people thought was haunted. Mine wasn't on the corner. Mine was behind the elementary school. There was also the revenge haunting, you know, the prom date that got stood up and then she died along the way trying to get to prom. You know, so there's some sort of prom ghost story from it's always from the 50s. You've noticed that? And then the hitchhiking ghost. Bloody Mary is a great one, Sam. Bloody Mary's a good one. So we in our Western civilization, we've come up with these popular ghost stories, and Golden Arm, that's a good one too. And they've cultivated from these early roots of ghost lore, you know, from the ancient Greeks and Romans, and Britain. I'll give Britain some credit. All right. I am super bummed that slide is not there. Ugh. Nope, it's there. It just put it in the wrong spot. Go me. Okay, so let's talk about ghost stories real quick. There are 3 parts to a ghost story that is mostly across the board. You have a specific location, you know, haunted house, haunted school. Rarely, I mean, there's more stories now, but the classic ghost stories, you don't really have a person that is haunted or that has an attachment. It's always a house. Whether they were bound to the house, I don't know. There's a ghost. There's some unfinished business, whether they need to send a message, get revenge on somebody, and there is a resolution. This is not a new concept, not even for like the past 1,000 years. 2,000-3,000. I mean, this formula has been around for a while. And these parts have influenced society's beliefs in ghosts today, and I'll be honest, guys, in order to really understand paranormal culture today, we definitely have to look into our roots. It's like paranormal history class, but we're going back even farther. And this is something to consider when you look at local hauntings. You know, if you're an investigator that does residential cases, you know, you have to look at what the client knows about the paranormal. Where did they get their knowledge from? Is it from books? Is it from TV shows? Is it from movies? it's important to know. So first, ghost stories. So a lot of our ghost stories, they came before writing. They came through oral tradition. We're talking, you know, stories being shared around the fire. And, you know, this is how our earliest stories of gods and goddesses came about. It was through oral tradition. You could say it's a form of theater. You know, there was a performance there, which is why I have that little note of performance had a major influence in the passing on of ghost stories. And yes, Holly, you can watch the rest tomorrow. This will be recorded. Y'all should have access to the recording. And you're welcome. Glad you came. So anyway, so there is a strong root in performance and ghost stories, and I can get into that later when we do questions. So, so a lot of people will look at, a lot of people, if you do, if you do research into early ghost stories, you're going to run into Pliny the Younger. And Pliny the Younger was very much essential. No, groundbreaking. I don't know what the right word is here, but Pliny the Younger's account of ancient Rome gave us so much when it came to history. You know, the Roman Empire, and just a lot of what we know about today is because of Pliny the Younger. One of the most interesting stories that I've run into with Pliny the Younger is the story of Athenodorus. This was probably one of the earliest ghost stories that we can run into here. I'll tell the story about Athenodorus in a minute. So then we also have Aristotle. Aristotle had opinions on ghosts. It was not uncommon for some of our most well-known and world-renowned philosophers to have an opinion on ghosts. You know, it was very much a belief. It was actually funny because Lucian, you know, ancient, you know, satirist, he ridiculed beliefs in the paranormal, which tells you there was paranormal belief back then. So that's something to keep in mind when you run into somebody, you know, writing about how belief in the paranormal is mundane or idiotic and whatnot. Yes, we can read like, okay, this person clearly didn't believe, but that tells you that person's society at the time very much believed. And he didn't only go into on the belief in the paranormal. I mean, he went after religion, the church, I mean, superstitions. I mean, it was pretty much everything. You could say that Lucian was the modern day skeptic, which was, you know, very, very nice. So anyway, then we have Roman Plautus. He had written a play called Monsteralia. I think I'm saying that right. It also translates to the haunted house. So, I mean, and we're talking, again, these are ancient Greeks and Romans. I mean, Aristotle, his theory on why ghosts stayed earthbound, you know, based on the decisions and your life choices and how you essentially lived your life, if you're a good person or not, every transgression you had added a chain to your soul. So the more chains you had, the more your soul was weighed down and was forced to stay on earth. Makes sense. Now, if you're thinking chains and ghosts, why does that sound so familiar? We have Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Jacob Marley was weighed down with all these chains, and he's telling Scrooge, if you don't change your life, your chains are going to be heavier than mine. So I found that when I learned that little tidbit, and I mean, I love Christmas Carol, and I was like, oh my gosh, is that where Dickens got it from? And Dickens is another great example of him being a reflection of belief in ghosts for his time. I mean, he was part of the Ghost Club, which was founded in the 1800s. He wrote about the paranormal a lot, guys. Christmas Carol wasn't his only ghost story, so to speak. Anyway, So before I keep going, let me get into the story of Athenodorus. There was a man who had bought a house in Athens. He saw an ad in their paper for this house, and it was cheap. It was a cheap house, which is always your, your first red flag. I can't tell you how many. I can't tell you how many ghost stories start with oh, I bought this house really cheap. I believe the Amityville house was cheap. The 10th Avenue Theater was cheap. So in other words, if you run into a really cheap house, you might want to make sure it's not haunted. But anyway, so this man bought a house in Athens. He got it for cheap. And then his first night there, he sees this apparition, this ghost with like this man. I think he was covered in chains too, hey, long beard. And he kept beckoning the man to follow him, come with me, blah, blah, blah. And I believe it was the third night the man decided, or no, it was the first night. It was a short and sweet ghost story. The man follows the ghost and he takes him into this courtyard in the back, and then the man disappears. Or the ghost disappears. The man marks the spot on the ground, and then the next morning he gets the town magistrate. They dig up that spot, and lo and behold, there are bones there. And the man never saw the ghost again. So already you have location, like we talked about earlier, location, some sort of unfinished business, and you have a resolution. So there was also I didn't really find a lot of information about the German farmhouse poltergeist that happened in 856 AD. Poltergeists are going to be another completely different subject. I mean, it was definitely the more classic poltergeist, things falling, that sort of thing, things falling, flying, moving, your classic poltergeist stuff happening. Okay, so with all this in mind, we've been talking about ancient Britain, Greece, Rome. Now let's fast forward the clock a little. Let's talk about spiritualism. I love the spiritualist era. So spiritualism as we know today came about in the 1800s when we had the Fox sisters and their encounter with Mr. Splitfoot. They had moved into this house in Albany, New York, and they started making contact with this ghost, and they identified him and whatnot. And of course, most of us know this. The Fox sisters, their career was a bit controversial, and it's interesting because they came out and said yes, it was all forgery. Then they took it back and said no, it's not forgery, and it went back and forth. But anyway, so this was another reflection on society's belief in the paranormal at the time. Then, of course, the Civil War happened. Spiritualism really took off during and after the Civil War. Of course, if we want to look at the reason why, the obvious answer is, a lot of people died during the Civil War. I mean, not just soldiers, but entire families were wiped out, whether it was due to illness or interacting with the enemy, or, when the fathers had to go to war, the wives and the kids had to pick up the slack when it came to work, and a lot of them didn't survive that. But the Civil War violated something that was known as the Good Death. The Good Death was pretty much you died at home. You died at home, surrounded by family, and you were buried in the family plot. The entire family is buried and together. The Good Death was violated with the Civil War because people were dying like 3 states away from their home, or even 5 states away from their home. Depending on what side of the lines they died, their bodies were just put into a ditch and, with dirt on top. For example, Confederate soldiers who died during Gettysburg, their bodies were put in shallow graves and ditches, and Of course, after the Battle of Gettysburg, it rained, so a lot of these bodies became exposed once again, and it was also really hot, so it started to stink. I mean, you had families who would travel to try to claim their loved ones' bodies, but I mean, if you just look at how many unmarked graves there are from, just from Gettysburg alone, you know that a lot of these bodies went unclaimed. So these men and women and children, they were never identified. So there's your unfinished business, lack of a resolution right there. So because of that, people wanted some sort of closure and to make contact with their lost loved ones. And so spiritualism, even, regardless of where you stand and whether you believe it's true or not, they created communication techniques that are still used today, like knocking, knock, do what I do. The Fox sisters, I believe they use like the alphabet, like, with how many knocks there are and whatnot, to coincide with the letters of the alphabet. We had seances. Mrs. Lincoln, Mary Todd Lincoln, was very much into spiritualism, and Honest Abe participated in a few seances. I don't know how much he believed, but, Mary Todd Lincoln was very much stricken with trauma from losing a baby, and spiritualism became a part of her life. So it was there to give people closure and to fill in a gap of curiosity. If you're really curious about spiritualism, there were spiritualism-like events that happened in the 1700s. I believe in France. There is an account of, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but who had a vision of a fire in a nearby town in the 1700s. And keep in mind, it's the 1700s. I mean, we don't have they didn't have cell phones or Facebook, today, where if a fire starts, we know about it 20 minutes later. This was the next town over, like 50 miles away, a 2 or 3 day trip. So it's not like information was that easily gathered. So in case if you're wondering about the picture, that is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the same man who wrote the, Sherlock Holmes series. If we have time at the end, the poor man really wanted to believe in fairies, and it kind of turned into his downfall a little bit, at least when it came to credibility. Okay, so speaking of ghost lore today, so we have some pretty influential people who changed the world of ghost hunting. Now, if you think it's for the better, that's great. If you don't think if you think that it was more detrimental to the paranormal, that's fine too. So we had Hans Holzer, and his daughter is alive and well doing the ghost thing too, if you want to look up Alexandra Holzer. Hans Holzer was very popular in the 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit of 90s, and I think the 50s too. But he really set that trend of the relationship between the ghost hunter and the medium. So, and using a medium as a tool. Before then, it's, it kind of happened, but I mean, the old school ghost hunters, I mean, we're talking like Ghost Club, Society for Psychical Research. I mean, they were poking and prodding the psychic mediums. They weren't really using them for spirit communication at the time. If you want to learn more about that, Deborah Blum wrote a really good book called The Ghost Hunter, or Ghost Hunters, which really goes into that history when they were testing out psychics and mediums. Harry Price was a big one who influenced a lot when it came to the paranormal. And then Lorraine Warren too. I know their career is pretty controversial, but they did influence a lot, especially for those who are into demonology and wanting to learn more about that. Anyway, so today we have paranormal reality television. I mean, we have ghost hunters, we have ghost adventures. We've had Haunted Highway. There's paranormal, oh my goodness, what is that? Paranormal Lockdown. I mean, The Dead Files. I mean, we have so many different kinds of television shows now. And this is my personal opinion, and this is my theory. Sorry guys. I'm not saying it's real, or, well, no, to me it's real. I'm not saying it's right, but it's my personal opinion. I believe that paranormal reality television has created a division or a separation between the living and the dead. When you think about thousands of years ago, you know, we're talking ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Cicero's time and whatnot, there was very much a coming together of the living and the dead. There was an acknowledgement that we were equals with the dead, because that there was that belief they did continue living after death. But now paranormal culture has evolved to a place where we kind of expect the ghosts to perform like trained monkeys. You know, and if we can't get a response out of them, then provocation has turned into something. It's a thing now. And then people wonder why we get scratched or why we hear "get out," you know, as an EVP. So it's very much a thing now. And this is where we get into how this reflects our current belief in ghosts. You know, anytime that we get at APS, if we get a case request, I ask the client, do you watch paranormal TV? And if they tell me yes, it doesn't mean I'm going to veto them from, you know, from us helping them, but it's going to give me an idea of what they perceive as paranormal. For example, unfortunately with paranormal television, with the television and entertainment industry in general, when you're at a place, I mean, those of you who are investigators and ghost hunters, you know, not every place you go to is haunted. But from the perspective of a producer on a TV show, you spent a significant amount of money on equipment, transporting your cast and crew to this location, and nothing happens. What do? Well, that's why dust and water and moisture and bugs become orbs, and orbs become demons, because it's good entertainment. It's for entertainment purposes. So with this in mind, with the way ghost lore is today, are we being respectful of the dead? One of the biggest things, my cat is trying to say hi to everybody. One of the biggest things I try to drive home with any webinar or public talk that I do, these ghosts were people just like you. Just as you are living your life dynamically and to the fullest, these people once did as well. Now they are living in a different type of existence, but they are still people. So we have to be mindful and respectful of that. Okay. I don't know if anyone can figure out the chat, but anyway, I'm going to turn on the, well, if you guys can raise your hand, go ahead and raise your hand. Or if you have questions, you can fill in Q&A. If you guys look in the bottom of your screen. Anyway, or let me know in the chat if you have a question, because I can actually bring people on. So if you are into, you know, being on camera and having us hear your voice, I can actually bring you on here to chat. Just let me know if you have a question. Yeah, you should be able to raise your hand too. No? Okay. You should be able to, hopefully. Any questions? Feel free to use the chat. Any questions? Questions at all? Comments? Sam says, I think it's insulting to use a belief as entertainment. TV doesn't come close to my reality as I've seen it, or disrespect. I wonder what's going to happen with these dolls left behind. Items open gates of hell. Ooh, that got dark very quick. Sam, not everyone is really chatting right now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So that's probably why you can't see the others chatting. Anyway, so yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're totally fine. I like it when people talk. So, all right. Okay, cool. Let me go back to sharing. I can see the chat. So if you guys decide to, if y'all decide to, you know, say something, you know, go for it. Okay, so let me go back. Let me go back to here. Nope, I see a chatter. That's Sam. Do you go investigate? Yes, I investigate quite a bit, actually. I will answer that live. Okay, so I do investigate. I investigate quite a bit. I try to go do so. I try to investigate once a month. One, just to keep myself in practice, and two, to open my horizons a bit. We have another question from Mark. Mark says, oop, the question has been answered live. Okay, well, I'm going to answer that question right now, Mark. How many places have you investigated in North Carolina that is reported haunted? Good question, my friend. Very good. Very good question. Let me get to, there we go. So, gotta count at the top of my head right now. One, two. If I include residential cases, we're looking at I would say 8 places, and that's that includes residential cases. I do a lot of investigations in Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, West Virginia. Raleigh itself doesn't really have a lot of available hauntings. There are a few, especially around the Dix property. But it's really interesting because it's also the South. So getting people to talk about their hauntings is very difficult sometimes. Like, we've had a few historical locations reach out to us wanting us to check the place out. And then when we finally get to, hey, the day before, hey, we're getting ready to go, we can't wait to see you and, you know, visit your property, and they're like, oh, never mind. So having that paranormal stigma can be very troubling for people, which makes sense. I mean, it's a big deal. It's very much a big deal. So because some people still, even though paranormal television has really laid out the groundwork for, groundwork for acceptance in paranormal belief, it's still seen as esoteric. So I hope that answers your question, Mark. All right, Laura Lynn, let's go ahead and have you here, allowed to talk. All right. Hey, Laura Lynn. Are you able to talk? I unmuted you, so. All right, maybe not. Laura Lynn, if you could, oh, don't have a microphone. Okay. All right. that answers that question. Let's lower hand. Okay. Let me. Okay, Laura Lynn, I was using a ghost spirit box on radio on Saturday. The ghost said something about being connected, man's voice. We asked connected to what? Woman's voice says connected. Does this mean the ground? It could. This was when you were at Dick's, right? Okay, Dick's. Okay. I mean, it could have been connected to the property. I mean, whew, Dick's has quite a bit of history there too. So maybe they were connected to the hospital, connected to the cemetery. But the man's voice said connected and the woman's voice said connected. So perhaps that means something, you know, land related. That would be my first guess, or maybe the man and the woman are connected to each other. I mean, if anyone here has a thought too, feel free to share it in the chat, because this is interesting. It's very interesting. Okay. Let's see. Never yet. Can't find team. Me and my dog go together. She's a great partner. Oh, I've heard. Okay. I would love to take a dog on a paranormal investigation. This is the mad scientist in me, though. Not only do I want to take a dog on investigation, but I want to take a small child on investigation. And before anyone freaks out on me, I will say it's more of for, I would take them to a benevolent haunting. You know, I would not put anyone in that position. You know, I wouldn't put anyone in that position to, you know, get scared of something. Laurelyn, I hope that helped. Anyway, so when it comes to, how do I close this? Okay. Nope. Okay, Laurelyn, I am really trying to get your box put away. Anyway, so I'm still learning the ropes when it comes to Zoom. It's quite interesting. Okay, let me stop share. Okay. Anyway, so disable target. There we go. There we go. Fixed it. So, but yeah, I mean, I would, for example, the Trivia Clinic would be a great place to take a kid, because that place is very benevolent. There's not anything nasty there, and it's haunted by at least 2 children. So I would not tell the kid anything, just take the kid there and see what happens. So, and of course, if anything is questionable or unsafe, I take the kid out, obviously. But that's, again, that's the, but that's, you know, that's a mad scientist thing. I would probably have to use my own child. So, Sam says, did you attend the hunt this past weekend? The Trivia Clinic investigation, yes. I don't think I have another one scheduled. My next one's not scheduled until November 10th. I have an investigation on November 10th and November 14th. Ooh. So anyway, Sam mentions her dog knows things before she does. That's really cool. Putting a camera on her too. I mean, I would document that. We need it. Mark says, my group uses a dog on one of our investigations to the Devil's Tramping Ground. It turned out really well. Mark, I'm going to have to pick your brain on the Devil's Tramping Ground, because I'm skeptical of it, but I want to visit it. And I hear it's going to be bulldozed pretty soon. So I wanted to see it before anything like really, you know, terrible happens, you know, where it's gone. So, yeah. All right. Good. All right, folks. So I am going to, I'll take one more question. Yes, Sam, it would be cool to see. I'll take one more question before I have to close out. So feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat's fine too. Q&A. Gotta love the Q&A. Y'all come to South Carolina. We'll actually be there end of November for Atomicon. That's going to be in Charleston, South Carolina. But I know that won't be our only trip to South Carolina. I think we're planning to go to a few places in the state in 2019. So Anderson, okay, I'll look up Anderson. Yeah, I'll look up Anderson and see, check it out. So, all right. Good, guys. Okay, so anyway, so some light housekeeping stuff. So class number 2 will happen next week on the 10th, and that's going to be at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And like our Facebook page and join our Facebook group, Association of Paranormal Study, and catch us on Most Terrifying Places in America. I'm going to promote it as much as I can. That's happening this Sunday. And we're going to be on the episode Cursed Towns, and there's the air dates for that episode. Yeah, but be sure to join our Facebook group. You know, we have like 750-ish members, but, you know, Facebook groups, you know, some people join just to join and then they forget about it. But we have a really great community of people who love to answer questions. We have a nice mix between believers and skeptics. We have a few who are very technologically minded, which is awesome. You're welcome. You're welcome, Sam. And yeah, so it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for attending class, and I hope this was fun for you. Feel free to shoot me a message if you have any suggestions for the future. You're welcome, Teresa. And I hope you guys all have a good night, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Tell your friends, and definitely make this more interactive, you know, as I get used to Zoom. All right. Bye, guys. I'll see you next time.